We are going to start here a three series class where we're focusing on hip mobility and also learning to do a specific movement kind of progression towards a hip airplane. And hip airplane is working a lot of both balance, strength, and stability through the hip, and also getting rotation back into the hip. And missing rotation in the hips, stiffness in the hips can lead to a lot of issues upstream and downstream into the knee, into the low back. And so anything we can do to sort of teach our hip to work better, to get more mobility, and then to actually feel like we can control that mobility is really going to transfer well into activities, everyday functional movement, and certainly any kind of athletic or fitness applications. So this is an awesome series that you can hold on to and learn from to apply to warm-ups, cool downs, just any kind of movement exploration that you want to do. So we're going to start with each week will be a specific warm-up that we're going to do, and then we're going to go into a progression of working on going from the ground and getting the movement a little bit worked on through balance and hip work on the ground, and then we're going to work up to standing. Okay, so a hip airplane, where we're going to end up is we're going to be working on getting into this single leg balance position where we can balance and feel stable in our core and hip. And then we're going to work on rotating, pushing the floor away, and then rotating back. And the arms kind of end up looking like these airplane wings. And so there is a little bit of shoulder mobility and stability involved too. Kind of gets everything. So to start, we're going to get our spines warmed up a little bit so we can feel and sense position of our spine and core, get our breathing online so we can sense good core stability and core activation, get a little bit of hip activation going, and then we're going to start with just a few uh, variations of the hip airplane. So try to join, if you can, the next 3 weeks, and I hope you can learn quite a bit. So let's get started, guys. Here we go. So we're going to start with some cat-cows just to get some articulation through the spine and help get our breathing online. We want to be able to get some breathing through here. So I'm going to get us on all fours. And before we actually start moving the spine around, I want you guys to take a big breath in through your nose and sense the breath going into your belly, your low back. Exhale out. Sense everything kind of shrinking back in towards the spine. Take a big breath in. Breathe in right between the ribs and the hips. Try to fill this gap. And let it all go. Making sure we're not breathing up into the chest. Put a hand onto your low back now. Take a nice big breath in. See if you can feel this filling in. Exhale out. Switch hands. Bring your left hand up to your side. We're going right here, but on the left, I want you guys to push the floor away a little bit, get a little activation into the core. Take a big breath into that side of your oblique, right down the side between the ribs and the hips. Big breath in through the nose. Get a big fill. Just feel like there's a big fill, 360. Exhale out. One more time. Big breath in. Big fill and let it go. So that's the breath that we're going to use for our reference breath. We're going to be taking it with us now. So I want you guys to stay active through the shoulder a little bit. Head is up. We're going to start by kind of taking a big breath in, going into flexion. Try to think of tucking the tailbone down, top of the head down, pushing the floor away. Big breath in here. Breathe right in between your shoulder blades, right into that stiff part of the spine. And then we're going to exhale out, come down. And big breath in. And let it go. Big breath in. And let it go. So incorporating our breath work into our movement. Big breath in. And let it go. Breathe in. Let it go. See if you can get a little bit taller. Follow that breath. Let it go. Big breath in. And let it go. We're going to get 2 more. Big breath in. And let it go. Last one, we're going to hold the top. Hold it, hold it. Exhale out, hold. One more breath while we hold this. Try to tuck the hips a little bit more and let it go. And then we come down. All right, guys, good. Next, we're going to get some rotations. So we're going to sit back, drive the hips towards the heels, lock that hip into position. We're going to bring that elbow down between the knees. We're going to use this as our rotational point. We're going to bring our elbow down, then we're going to rotate and try to twist. Look at the sky, come back down, okay? Breathe in as you go up. Again, try to get that fill into the ribs. We need to be able to expand this rib cage so we get better breathing and better core activation. Come back down. So look at it as a challenge to get some air in. Big breath in. So again, we're working our breathing into our movement. Breathe into that low back. Breathe in. 3 more. 2 more times. 1 more time. Big breath in. Hold here, breathe out. Ease it back. All right, we're switching sides. Again, try to create space. Let's breathe inside. Get that big breath into the ribs. Especially if you're feeling some restriction. Try to mobilize from the inside out. Just following our breath up. Get that breath into the low back. Ribs. Middle of the back. Few more. 2 more times. Big breath. Hold the top. Long exhale. And then we come back down. Good job, good. All right, now we're going to get into a little bit of hip mobility. So we want to bring that big focus on our breathing with us. Okay, so we're going to get up. This foot's going to be turned out. This knee is straight down. We're going to try to tuck our hips, ribs down, so that we get that stacked position. We're going to bring our hand down in front of us. Okay, I'm going to go about 3/4 view here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to look at stretching from the groin down to the knee, and we're just going to drive this knee towards the toe and open up this here, and we're going to try to work on rotating, and we're going to push the pubic bone towards the toe. So when you think of pushing your hips, you're going to feel a stretch through here. Try to rotate. Come back up. You're leaning on this knee. Okay, we're practicing balancing in through this hip. So into that hip, open up. You're getting a little bit of an ankle stretch here too. Coming back over that knee. In, try to get that big stretch in the adductors. Come back. Breathe in maybe as you go into restriction. Big breath in. Try to get a little further each time. Breathe into that belly. Good. Think of pushing your hip forward. Trying to stay open. Keep that chest open. Feel the weight on this hand. Breathe in. Couple more. Right in through here. Breathing into the ribs, breathing into the core. And we come back. Good. All right, great, guys. Switching sides. Same setup. So foot's in line with this knee. I'm trying to tuck my hips to get my hips level, ribs over my hips. I'm going to bring my hand down. I'm rotating. So I'm thinking chest is opening, arms up. I'm going to drive my hip towards my foot. Trying to get a big stretch through this. You can breathe out if you feel like that's helping. Or you can inhale. The point is I want you to stay rotated, trying to keep your weight on this back knee a little as you push your hip forward. So we're going to feel constant weight on the hand and the knee. Getting a little bit of lean into this ankle in the front. Or we're thinking of stretching in through this groin, through this adductor. We're trying not to arch and flare the rib cage, trying to keep the ribs down, hips tucked. Remember, we want the movement, the mobility to happen in the hip, not the back. Breathe in. I'm going to get a couple more here. Big breath in. And we're back down. All right, so we just created some space. We opened up through that groin a little bit. That's going to help us in those hip airplanes when we're pushing the floor away and we're opening up through that hip. Okay, so now we're going to get down onto our side. We're going to activate. Okay, we're going to activate now. So we just opened up through here. Now we're going to work on strengthening that position. So we're going to get into a side plank. Keep our feet together. We're going to drive up. We're going to hold here. We're going to hold. Knee is going to be up. Now I want you to lift your foot up in the air. So all hip here. We're going to come down. Hip's going to go back, hinging at the hip. Core is stacked. As I lift up and drive this hip forward, I want the ribs to stay stacked. So we don't want any movement in the spine. We want to keep this still and just think of pushing this floor away through that hip. Core is on. This hip is working just because I'm keeping it up like a clamshell up in the air. So I'm squeezing that hip, coming down, up. Big breath in, up. Breathe into the side. Create that pressure by pushing our knees into the ground. So as I go down, I'm pushing my knee into the floor. As I lift up, pushing even harder into the floor. Let's do two more. Pushing my elbow down. I want to keep the activation in the hip, in the core. One more time. And we come back. Good. So we should get a good burn in the hip there. Trying to own that new mobility that we created with that stretch beforehand. All right, so we're here, we're lifting, trying to get stacked, head over ribs, over hips, over knees, nice and stacked. Knee is going to come up, driving this knee down, driving this knee up. Now I'm going to disconnect my foot, so I've really got to be managing this glute. Core, drive this knee into the floor, hips go back, hips go up. Fill into the core. Try not to chest breathe. Breathe into the belly. The key is on the way down, keep pushing that knee into the floor. Keep pushing that knee in the floor, then really drive off the knee. Push, 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 push even more. Push that knee down, up. Big breath in, up. We need these hips really working hard. Big breath in. Two more. One more time. Keep that core engaged. And back. Good job, guys. We should feel pretty focused on the hips right now. We worked a lot of this rotation, driving that floor away. Okay, so we're going to take the idea of driving the floor away. We're going to flip over onto all fours now. We're going to work our first big piece of the hip airplane, which is to extend the leg back. We're balancing on our knee, our hands. So we're started off in a quadruped position. Get that leg back. And then what we're going to do is we're going to work on rotating our hip away, coming back down, push the floor away from us, pull the floor back. Okay, so if we get a little more to the side, I'm thinking push this knee push the floor away. So think about keeping pressure through the knee. Now I'm going to think of pulling the floor back to me through my knee. So I don't want to lose knee pressure. Push the floor away. Ease it back down slow. So you feel this in your glute. You need to keep that core on. Ease it back down. Breathe in. Exhale out as you come down. Try to keep that back leg straight. Try to keep this glute working. One more time. Ease it back. Pull yourself back down. All right, we're going to switch. Okay, so remember, it gets easy to think about what's moving, but I want you guys to think about what's not moving right now. So what's not moving is that knee is staying connected to the floor. Then we come back. So I really want to sense the pressure here, not wobbling, going to the outside of the knee, the inside of the knee. I want to keep that knee driven into the ground. I could even think about pushing this toe down. If you push your toe down, you should feel your core kick on a little bit. Here we go. We're going to rotate and pushing the floor away from me. That's what's twisting this hip up. Now I'm going to bring the floor back under control through my hip. I'm thinking about pushing this hip joint out of my hip, almost like I'm trying to pop that hip socket right through my hip there. Push the floor away. I'm squeezing. Control. Keep the core engaged. So this is staying stacked. I'm getting some pressure in that belly. Even on the exhale, I'm not deflating here. I'm keeping that inflation. Trying to keep my back leg locked in. Try not to just turn my head. I'm trying to turn my whole spine, my whole body as one piece. Just pivoting off that knee. We're going to get two more. We come back down. Last one. And we come back down. Great job, guys. Good. All right. Now we're going to remove a balance point. Okay. So we're actually going to go into one arm up, one leg up, and then we'll have one knee down and one hand down. So it's going to require more balance, more sense of pressure. So I'm going to give you guys just a little tip. I want you to get your on all fours, lift your knees about an inch off the ground. See if you can hold here. Feel the core stability that's engaged. So when the knees are down, you might come off tension, right? So a little tuck, ribs down, take a breath in. Fill that belly with air, lift the knees. You should feel your abs kind of tighten. Now this time when you bring your knees down, don't let that pressure go. Keep that pressure. Keep that pressure. Now you're going to lift an arm and a leg. You're going to hold the pressure still. This is a lot about the core. Now we're going to try to rotate that hip. Then we're going to come back. So from this hand, my left hand to my right foot, one big giant piece rotating. Push the floor away. Pull the floor back to me through my hip. Should be able to breathe here. Come back down. Should be able to breathe here. Come back up. Ease it back. See if you can get all the way through that hip. Push the floor away. And then we ease it back down. And we switch. All right. We're going to go through that sequence again because the core is such an important piece of this. So we're going to get on all fours. Ribs and hips stacked. Get that head in a line. Make sure our head's on down. Push the floor away. Big breath in. Lift the knees up. Feel how the core stays on. When you bring your knees down, keep that core engaged like you're ready to lift up at any time. Right arm goes up. Left leg goes up. Try to shift your weight a little bit over this knee. You're going to push that hip. Then you're going to lift. Rotating away, pushing that floor away, pulling the floor back to me. Arm stays straight, back leg stays straight. Rotating. Twisting away from the knee, looking the other way. Now I'm rotating back towards the knee. We're going to get a few more. Trying to get all the work through here. Pushing that hip out. This hip's going to push back, pushing that knee into the floor. Now I'm pulling the floor back to me. So there's tension in the hip the whole way. Pushing, pulling. Think of a saw going through wood. We want tension both directions. Trying to squeeze this glute. It's easy to lose track of the arm and the leg that's extended. One more time. And there we go. Good job. Okay, so we're going to go through those one more time. Let's take a quick breath. And I want you guys to just remember, see how it feels in these hips, that we're trying to get this connection, rib to hip to hip, right? So we're trying to keep this connection. We want to make sure that at no point are we trying to get any movement through here. We're really just trying to differentiate, teaching our body how to know that I'm not moving my spine, that I'm moving my hip, right? So it's real easy to just arch your back as you're doing this stuff instead of just trying to move the hip. So as we go back to this first one, let's really focus on just the hip moving. So we're just going to do 5 again, each side. So we're going to get on all fours. I want you guys to lift your knees up, get that core on, ease it back down. Don't relax the core, get that leg back. We're almost done. We're going to push the floor away. Then you're going to pull the floor back to you, trying to get all the weight into this hip. So try to imagine that your entire body weight is balancing on this leg, as though you're balancing by itself. Push away, pull it back. Try to feel the weight in your hip. This is where sometimes just being able to sense movement is a big piece of the puzzle. Come back. 3 more. Very easy to start lifting with your chest, your back, but you're trying to really isolate. You're trying to squeeze that glute. One more time. Push. So this is a 3-point position. We've got 3 points of contact, I guess 4 if you include the toes. Last one. So we have lots of balance down here to be able to feel this. Switch. Okay, back leg. Leg goes up. Try to feel the weight through this leg and hip. Okay, once you've got it, you feel that force being driven up from the ground. You're going to push the floor away. Now pull the floor back. Get that hip rotating. Push the floor away. Squeeze your glute. Ease it back slow. Don't fall. Don't collapse in. Try to control it. Imagine your knee is your foot. You're balancing through the floor. You feel the ground. You're pulling back in. Again, fill that belly with air. Keep that tension. Core is solid. Breathing wherever we need to. 2 more. Really try to isolate that. Go slow, control, control, control. Come back down. Good job. All right, we're going to finish off with the bird dog airplane one more time. Again, we're going to lift opposite arm, opposite leg. Before we start, we get set. Chin is in, ribs down, hips a little bit tucked. Take a breath in. Feel that 360 fill. Lift the knees up. Make sure, okay, I got that pressure in my core. I'm going to come down. I don't want to lose it. Lift the opposite arm, opposite leg. Again, try to get over that knee. We're going to rotate. Pull it back down. Keep the weight over the knee. Trying to move slow so we can feel the hip doing the work. It's real easy to start using our low back, our neck. You'll know you're less stable if your breathing starts to get shallow. So big breaths here. 2 more. Don't lose your breath. 1 more time. Long, slow, controlled breath. Ease it back. Switch. Last set. Arm goes up. Actually, let's go through our setup. Here we go. All fours. Being real incremental about this. Big breath in. Lift up. There's my core. Come back down. Keep it. Opposite arm. Opposite leg. Get onto that knee. Rotate. Push the floor away. Pull it back. Big breath in. Remember, if we can't breathe here, we don't really own this shape, we don't feel strong, and we definitely can't progress it. It's going to be hard to apply these skills to other movements, or even just our regular, just health of our hip. Last one. Push that floor away, push it away, and come back. All right, guys, good work. You should feel definitely some pretty major hip mobility joined into here. You should feel like maybe when you stand up, see how you feel. You should feel definitely more awareness of the hips. You might feel more grounded through your feet. You might feel more supported in the low back, especially if you have low back pain or low back injuries, knee injuries. See how it feels to squat. Okay, and then of course, we're going to try our hip airplane. Even though we're not going to progress all the way up to standing yet, just check it out, see how it feels, right? So we're going into that single leg position, right? Here's where we were leaning over our knee, getting that balance into our hip. Arms would come out, you would drive the floor away, this time through your foot instead of your knee. Then you're going to pull it back, trying to keep that foot stable. Remember, we want that connection to the floor to be strong, so I don't want to move that foot. Rotate back, tip forward more if you can, depending on your mobility needs. Try to twist. Woo, almost lost my balance. Push the floor away. Trying to be incremental about controlling that hip. And now let's switch sides. Okay, it's going to be a different story for some of us on each leg, depending on injury history, mobility issues, just balance, strength. Okay, so we're going in. We're looking at, okay, how does it feel to balance here? Definitely feels better after all that work. I'm starting to think about rotating. I'm looking at that foot. I want that foot to be stable, my arch to be on, this glute stacked, head is in position, arms out, squeezing my back, arms become airplane wings, push the floor away. Feel that balance. Can you breathe here? Pull the hip back down through the foot. Try to go the other way. Push. Keep that connection. Don't lose foot pressure. Breathe in. Exhale out. Woo. If you lose your balance, try to keep it. Fight for it. Let's do one more. Feel that foot stay. Knee is driving out, pushing the floor away. Now we're going to pull the floor back to us. Hard to keep that back leg up. When we come back. All right, guys, good work. So I'll be on the next week with a new sequence. The warm-up is going to be very similar because we want to build that endurance in those warm-up pieces so that we can keep kind of building the hip airplane through that hip. Hopefully you guys feel great in your hips. Maybe you have a leg workout coming up or you want to go do something active right after this. Hiking, anything where you need a lot of dynamic stability through the hip would be great. Thanks for joining, guys. See you next week.